The space market on Virex Station was always noisy. Merchants shouted, traders bargained, and travelers from many worlds walked in every direction. Bright lights flashed from hovering signs, and the smell of alien food filled the air. People moved quickly, focused on their business. Then, in the middle of the crowded market, something happened that made everyone stop. A small dragon girl collapsed near the food stalls. She was tiny, barely the size of a human child, and her scales had lost their shine. Her wings, which should have been strong and wide, were folded tightly against her back. Her eyes looked tired and hollow, and her body shivered slightly. Some of the traders stepped back, unsure what to do, while others laughed. A few travelers even took out devices to record her struggle, whispering cruel jokes to each other. "She looks useless," one trader said, smirking. "Why even let her roam here?" "Probably a failed hatchling," another added. "Can't breathe fire, can't fight, just a waste of dragon blood." The dragon clans had abandoned her weeks ago. She had been born small and weak, and unlike other dragons, she could not control her fire. The older dragons called her failure, leaving her to find scraps of food wherever she could. No dragon had come to help her. She was alone. The dragon girl tried to lift her head. Her tongue flicked out, tasting the air, searching for anything edible. Her stomach growled, loud enough that some nearby humans heard it. A few laughed again, making jokes about how even humans could survive better than her. Her wings twitched with hunger, and tears formed in her eyes. She felt shame and fear. Every dragon in the market ignored her. Every traveler passed by as if she were invisible. She was nothing. A security droid rolled toward her, lights flashing red. Its mechanical voice said, "Unauthorized entity detected. You must leave the market." The dragon girl's tiny claws scraped at the floor. She wanted to move, but her legs were weak. She could barely lift herself. The droid reached down, ready to carry her away. Then, someone stopped. A human engineer named Oren Hale stepped forward. He was tall, wearing a simple uniform with tools hanging from his belt. His boots clanked on the metal floor as he walked slowly toward the dragon girl. He didn't rush. He didn't shout. He didn't push the droid back. He simply knelt beside her. The crowd stared. Humans rarely came close to dragons, especially in the middle of a busy market. The older dragons whispered among themselves, frowning. "Why is a human here?" one asked. "Does he not know she is weak?" Oren looked at the dragon girl carefully. Her scales were dull green, and the tips of her wings trembled. He noticed small cuts on her claws and wings, probably from trying to steal scraps or from falling. He also saw the fear in her eyes, the fear of being mocked, ignored, or removed. The crowd did not understand why he would care. They laughed at him too, whispering that he had no idea what he was doing. Oren did not move away. Instead, he opened a small ration pack from his belt. It was nothing fancy, just a loaf of baked protein and some water. He placed it gently in front of her. "Here," he said quietly, "you can share this with me. You don't have to be alone." The dragon girl froze. No dragon had ever offered her food before. No dragon had ever spoken to her gently. She sniffed the air, unsure if this human was a threat. But the smell of the food was strong, and her stomach protested. She hesitated, then slowly reached out a claw. Oren did not flinch. He let her take a small piece, smiling softly. The crowd gasped. Some laughed again, saying, "The human is feeding trash." Others shook their heads, confused. They had never seen this. Dragons and humans did not usually trust each other, and dragons especially did not accept help from humans. Yet here was a tiny dragon eating from a human's hand in the middle of the market. Lysera, the dragon girl, felt a strange warmth in her chest. The fear in her body began to fade a little. She had expected cruelty, mockery, or even pain. Instead, she found patience and calm. She ate slowly, unsure if it was real. Oren spoke quietly as she ate. "What is your name?" he asked. "Lysera," she whispered. Her voice was soft, almost breaking. "Lysera," he repeated, nodding. "You are strong to survive alone. It is not your fault that others have abandoned you." The crowd murmured. Some shook their heads in disbelief. How could a human speak to a dragon with such respect? Some humans in the market whispered too, saying maybe he was foolish, maybe he was brave. But Lysera did not care about the crowd. She only focused on the warmth of the food and the kindness in his voice. Minutes passed. Oren did not rush her. He stayed kneeling beside her, quietly making sure she could eat without fear. Slowly, Lysera raised her head. Her wings twitched, not from fear but from growing energy. Her scales began to gleam faintly under the market lights. She felt something she had not felt for weeks, hope. A young trader nearby whispered, "She is changing already. I can see it. The human, maybe he is dangerous." Others laughed nervously. No one wanted to admit that a human had done what dragons themselves had refused. Lysera finished the first portion of food. She looked at Orin, her eyes wide. She did not know his intentions. She did not know why he had stopped for her, why he had not joined the others in mocking her. But a small spark of trust had formed. Orin smiled. "We can share the rest," he said softly. "You do not have to hide from the world anymore." The security droid beeped angrily, still waiting for them to leave. Orin ignored it. He would not let the droid take her. Not yet. Not while she was so weak, so scared. For the first time in a long time, Lysera felt safe. Not because she was strong. Not because she could fight. But because someone, a human, had chosen to kneel beside her. And that small act, simple as it was, changed everything. Around them, the crowd watched, stunned. The market noises seemed distant now. Traders and travelers whispered to each other. Some recorded the scene, unsure if they were witnessing a strange miracle or just an unusual act of kindness. Dragons in the shadows muttered angrily, unable to understand why a human would care for a dragon so weak. Lysera's stomach was full for the first time in days, but more importantly, her heart felt full. She lifted her wings slightly, testing the strength in them. Orin remained kneeling, patiently waiting. He had done nothing extraordinary in the eyes of the crowd, but in the eyes of the dragon girl, he had done everything. And in that busy, noisy space market, among laughter and whispers, the smallest dragon girl and the quiet human engineer began an unspoken bond that would change not only their lives but the galaxy around them. Lysera's small claws trembled as she reached for the food. She had been hungry for days, and the thought of taking anything from a human made her uneasy. Dragons were taught from birth to be proud and independent. They were told never to rely on humans, never to accept their help. Accepting a meal from a human was almost like admitting weakness, a thought that made her stomach twist with shame. Yet hunger was stronger than pride. The smell of Orin's simple rations was too much to resist. She slowly leaned forward and took a small piece. Orin's hand stayed steady, giving her time to feel safe. He did not rush, did not snatch the food away. He only watched her carefully, his eyes kind, as if telling her she was not alone. The first bite made her pause. Warmth spread through her tiny body, a feeling she had almost forgotten. Her stomach rumbled in gratitude. The crowd, noticing this, began laughing louder. "Look at that," one trader sneered. "The human is feeding trash to the little dragon. What a joke." Others joined in. Some recorded the scene on their devices. "Even humans know more about survival than dragons these days," one muttered. "Pathetic little creature, eating like it's a dog." Lysera's tail flicked nervously. She wanted to hide, to disappear into the shadows, but her hunger forced her to stay. Orin spoke softly, ignoring the crowd. "What is your name?" he asked, as if her name mattered more than the laughter surrounding them. "Lysera," she whispered. The word was barely audible. Her voice shook, not from fear of him, but from the strange feeling of someone treating her like she mattered. "Lysera," Orin repeated, nodding. "It's a strong name. You deserve to be seen, not mocked." Lysera blinked. No dragon had ever spoken to her this way. The dragons who abandoned her had called her names, told her she was worthless, but this human, he treated her like a friend. A warm, safe presence in the middle of a cold, cruel market. Orin continued to speak as she ate, his voice calm and steady. "You must have had a hard time. Alone in the station, trying to survive. That is not easy. You are braver than you know." Lysera's small body trembled, but it was no longer from fear. She felt something she had never felt from dragons: respect, kindness, and patience. She did not fully trust him yet, but she wanted to. Orin asked her gentle questions, listening carefully. He learned she had been cast out by her own kind. She had no place in the dragon aid stations because her fire was weak, her size small, and her claws not sharp enough to hunt properly. The other dragons had laughed at her attempts to survive. She had no home, no family, no one to care for her. Lysera told Orin about her long days scavenging for scraps, her nights hiding in dark corners of the station, hoping no one would see her weakness. She spoke quietly, almost in disbelief that someone would care to listen. Orin nodded, never interrupting, never judging. He offered words that were new to her: understanding, encouragement, and patience. The crowd's laughter continued, but Orin did not look at them. He focused entirely on Lycera. Slowly, her small wings started to twitch. She felt energy returning to her body with each bite. She realized that she could trust him, at least a little. Meanwhile, unseen by anyone in the market, the station's sensors quietly recorded the interaction. Tiny drones and cameras, meant to monitor market activity, captured every moment. Far above the station, in the Dragon Authority headquarters orbiting the planet, officials noticed the footage. They had cameras everywhere, watching dragons and humans alike. When they saw a human kneeling and feeding a rejected dragon, they were surprised. Some frowned, some whispered in confusion. One observer said, "Why is a human doing this? Why is he not afraid of the dragon clans? Why does he not mock her?" Others in the council reviewed the footage more closely. Something about Oren's calm defiance, the way he ignored the jeering crowd, disturbed the ancient rules they had followed for centuries. Humans were considered small, weak, and insignificant by dragon standards. They were not supposed to interfere in dragon affairs, and yet here was a human acting with courage, patience, and respect. Lycera did not know the eyes watching her from space. She did not know that her small act of eating food from a human's hand was causing ripples far beyond the station. All she knew was the strange feeling inside her chest. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe. For the first time, someone had chosen to help her simply because she needed it. Oren offered her another piece of food. "Take your time," he said. "There is no rush. You deserve this." Lycera hesitated, then reached for it. As she ate, she looked at him with wide eyes, not understanding why a human would care for her when all dragons had turned away. "You are not alone," Oren said quietly. "No matter what others think, you deserve to be treated with respect. You are important." The words made her shiver, but this time in a different way. Not fear, not shame, but a strange warmth that grew inside her chest. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust someone again. The crowd began to sense something unusual. The laughter faded slightly, replaced by murmurs of confusion. Traders and travelers whispered to each other. Some recorded more footage, uncertain if they were witnessing something extraordinary or just a strange, unusual scene. Lycera's small wings stretched slowly. She lifted her head and looked around the market. The people who had mocked her before now seemed distant, almost irrelevant. Her focus was on the human kneeling beside her. He had not called her weak. He had not laughed at her. He had treated her like a person, not like a failure. For the first time, she felt a spark of hope. Hunger still gnawed at her, but it was accompanied by something else, trust. Perhaps not full trust yet, but enough to feel that someone might actually care. The crowd watched, stunned, as the smallest dragon in the market ate from the hand of a human. Some humans whispered quietly among themselves. Perhaps humans were stronger than dragons thought. Perhaps they could do things dragons could not. Lycera finished the food and looked up at Oren. Her small eyes glimmered faintly under the market lights. "Thank you," she whispered. The words were small but sincere. Oren smiled gently. "We are not done yet," he said softly. "There is more to eat, and more time to heal. You are not alone, Lycera. I will stay here with you." And so, in the middle of the busy Virax station, among whispers, laughter, and glowing lights, a small dragon girl and a human engineer began a quiet bond. A bond that no mockery, no cruelty, and no fear could break. The first seeds of trust and courage had been planted, and the galaxy, though unaware, was about to take notice. Lycera's small body felt stronger than it had in days. Each bite of the food Oren shared with her seemed to give her energy and courage. Her wings twitched, her claws gripped the floor a little firmer, and she lifted her head higher. The crowded market no longer felt so threatening. The laughter and mocking whispers still echoed around her, but they seemed smaller somehow, like distant sounds she no longer needed to fear. Oren stayed kneeling beside her, quiet and patient, letting her regain strength at her own pace. For a moment, it seemed that the small dragon girl and the human could exist peacefully in the chaos of Virax Station. But the calm did not last long. A loud mechanical voice broke through the hum of the market. Unauthorized disruption detected. Human interfering with dragon entity. Immediate removal required. The security droids returned, moving quickly through the crowd, their red lights flashing. They were no longer just trying to remove Lycera. Orders had come from higher up, the human must be taken. Oren looked at the approaching droids and did not panic. He saw the little dragon beside him, the same dragon that had been abandoned by her own kind, and his protective instinct took over. He stepped forward, placing his body between the droids and Lycera. "She is not leaving without me," he said firmly. His voice carried a quiet authority. I will not move until she is safe. The droids hesitated. Their protocols demanded obedience, but humans could sometimes disrupt programming in ways the machines could not fully predict. Orin did not fight. He did not strike or damage the droids. He simply knelt again, placing the remaining food between him and Lysera. The gesture was calm, non-threatening, yet unyielding. It was a signal, he was not leaving, and he was not afraid. Lysera stared at him, her small heart pounding. She had never seen a human act like this, never seen anyone defend her without anger, without violence. A strange feeling rose in her chest, something she had not felt since she had been abandoned, trust. Slowly, she moved closer to Orin, kneeling beside him. Then she did something extraordinary. She lowered her head, bowing beside him. A small, careful bow, almost invisible to the untrained eye, but monumental in meaning. No dragon had done this in centuries. To bow beside a human, to show respect and trust, was forbidden in dragon society. The act was quiet, but powerful. In the Dragon Authority headquarters above the station, observers who had been watching the footage paused. The moment they saw Lysera bow, alarms went off. One official muttered, "Impossible, that dragon cannot be, she is a royal line." Others checked their records frantically. Lysera's identification had been lost due to centuries of bureaucracy and abandonment. Her bloodline was dormant, her powers hidden because of starvation and neglect. Yet here she was, kneeling beside a human, showing both trust and submission in a way that only a royal dragon could. The crowd at Vyrek Station gasped. Traders froze, recording devices in hand, unsure if they were seeing a miracle or a trick. Whispers spread through the market. Did she just bow? I've never seen a dragon do that. That human, he must be important. The mockery faded, replaced by confusion and awe. Outside the station, dragon ships began to appear. Their massive forms glinted in the sunlight, engines humming as they approached the docking ports. Observers had sent orders to recall all available dragons for inspection. The appearance of the ships caused a stir in the market. Humans and traders alike stepped back, unsure what was coming. Some fled, fearing the dragons would punish Orin or Lysera for the public display. Others stayed, curious to see what would happen next. Orin stayed kneeling, calm and composed, placing the food gently in front of Lysera. It's okay, he whispered softly. You can be brave. You can eat and be safe. Lysera's wings twitched. She tested them carefully, feeling the strength return. She could sense the attention of the crowd, of the security droids, even of the approaching dragons, but she did not move away from Orin. Instead, she stayed beside him, her trust in him growing with each passing moment. The droids hesitated again. Their programming told them to remove the human, but the presence of the dragon and the sudden arrival of the authority ships complicated their orders. They were caught between following orders and avoiding unnecessary conflict with a royal dragon. Orin's quiet defiance had created a pause, a moment in which no one knew what to do. Lysera lifted her head slightly, her eyes meeting Orin's. She felt the energy in him, the calm strength that did not come from weapons or fire, but from courage and patience. It was unlike anything she had known. She slowly uncurled her wings, stretching them a little, testing the power she had been told she did not have. Hunger and weakness had kept her small, but now, with Orin beside her, she felt the potential for something more, something great. The approaching dragon ships cast long shadows over the market. Inside, the Dragon Authority's highest officials studied Lysera carefully. They had to act, but their confusion was clear. A human kneeling beside a dragon bowing in trust, these were signs that the old rules did not apply here. A new kind of strength was being shown, one that did not rely on fire, size, or claws, but on patience, kindness, and courage. Traders and bystanders whispered among themselves. Some had their devices recording, knowing that what they were seeing was historic. A small, abandoned dragon girl kneeling beside a human engineer was changing the way dragons, and the galaxy, would see humans forever. Lysera's body grew stronger by the moment. She could feel her wings flex, her claws grip, and her heart beat with determination. The bow she had given was more than a gesture, it was a message. She would not leave this human's side. She would not allow cruelty or mockery to define her. Something inside her had awakened, something powerful yet calm, ready to rise with patience and trust. Orin looked at her, smiling softly. You are stronger than you think, he said. Even when others forget you, even when they mock you, you have power. You just need to see it. Lysera's eyes glimmered. The market, the crowd, the arriving dragons, they all faded into the background. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. She felt hope. And in that quiet bond, kneeling beside a human in the middle of a chaotic station, a small dragon girl began a new story, one that would shake the rules of dragons and humans alike. The dragon ships hovered outside, engines ready, but inside the market, all eyes were on the small dragon and the human kneeling beside her. The stage was set. Something extraordinary was about to happen, and the galaxy would not forget it. The dragon enforcers landed with heavy thuds, their massive claws shaking the metal floor of Vyrek Station. The crowd gasped, stepping back in fear as proud dragons, larger than any building in the market, glared down at the human and the small dragon girl. Oren Hale remained kneeling beside Lysera, his calm eyes meeting theirs, unflinching. He could feel the tension, the weight of their authority pressing down, yet he did not move. The largest enforcer, a broad dragon with copper-colored scales, roared. Lysera, you are under our command. Return to the authority immediately. The human is to be removed at once. Lysera lifted her head, her small wings twitching. Her stomach was full, her body recovering, and her mind clearer than it had been in weeks. She took a deep breath, feeling the strength that had been hidden inside her, and spoke in a steady voice. I will not go without him. He has treated me with dignity when no dragon would. I choose to stay with him until I am ready to move. The enforcers froze. In all their centuries of service, they had never seen a dragon, especially one so young and small, speak to them this way. A dragon was expected to obey commands without question, to submit to authority without hesitation. But Lysera refused. The lead enforcer's eyes narrowed. You dare defy the authority, he demanded. His voice shook the station walls. This human is not your concern. Your life belongs to the dragons who command you. Lysera did not bow or lower her gaze. My life is my own, she said firmly. I choose my protector. He has given me safety and care. No dragon may take him from me by force. The enforcers murmured among themselves. They consulted holographic tablets, checking ancient laws and scrolls stored in their memory banks. Centuries of dragon codes, rules that had never been questioned, suddenly seemed alive in a new way. One enforcer hissed, the law, the dragon who chooses a protector cannot be taken by force. It is written. Oren had expected anger, punishment, perhaps even death. Standing beside Lysera, he had prepared for the worst. But instead, he felt a quiet shift. The dragons were bound by rules older than anyone remembered. Lysera's choice was lawful, and the enforcers had no right to ignore it. The station crowd watched in disbelief. Traders and travelers whispered nervously, realizing that the proud dragons, feared by all, were now forced to wait for the human to speak. Cameras and sensors recorded every moment. Some visitors whispered to each other, amazed that a human could hold the attention of dragons so powerful, simply by acting with calm courage. Oren stood, brushing dust from his uniform, but he did not raise his voice. He looked at the dragons and spoke quietly, with respect, not fear. I do not demand reward. I do not seek power. I only ask that Lysera be allowed to eat, heal, and choose her own future. Nothing more. Nothing less. The lead enforcer's eyes widened. Dragons did not expect humans to speak with authority, yet here was one doing so without arrogance or challenge. Oren's calm words, combined with Lysera's lawful choice, created a strange tension. The enforcers shifted on their claws, unsure how to proceed. Lysera moved slightly closer to Oren, her small body standing tall despite her size. She had regained much of her strength. Her scales glimmered faintly, and her wings lifted just enough to show her readiness. She had been abandoned, mocked, and rejected, yet now she stood proud, supported by the human who had shown her kindness. One of the enforcers hissed in frustration. She is young, inexperienced. Her choice is foolish. The lead enforcer's gaze softened slightly. Perhaps, he said slowly, but it is lawful. We cannot take her without her consent. She has chosen, and our laws bind us. The market crowd whispered in disbelief. Traders who had mocked Lysera earlier now stepped back, unsure what to say. Even humans in the crowd stared in awe. Here, in the middle of a chaotic station, dragons had been forced to respect the choice of a young dragon and a human. A quiet hush settled over the market. Oren knelt beside Lysera again, placing a small portion of food before her. Take your time, he said softly. Eat, rest, and regain your strength. The world can wait. Lysera accepted the food, nibbling carefully, her eyes never leaving the dragons outside. She could sense their power, the potential danger if they acted against her, yet she felt no fear. Oren's presence gave her courage, and her own growing strength reminded her that she was no longer a helpless hatchling. The lead enforcer sighed. "We will report this to the authority," he said. "Lysera has chosen well. The human shall stay, for now. But understand, we will be watching." Oren nodded respectfully. "I understand. I only ask for her safety and freedom to grow." The enforcers hesitated, then stepped back, wings folding slightly, acknowledging that their hands were tied. Outside, the dragon ships hovered silently, engines humming, waiting for further instructions. The display of calm courage from a human and a small dragon had caused a pause in their rigid procedures. The galaxy had rarely seen such a moment, and even the proudest dragons could not ignore it. Lysera's small wings stretched as she ate. Every bite gave her more strength. Every moment beside Oren filled her with hope. She realized something important: courage was not measured by fire or size. It was measured by the ability to stand firm, to protect what mattered, and to treat others with respect. Oren had taught her that, not with strength, but with patience and kindness. The crowd slowly regained their voices, but now with murmurs of admiration instead of mockery. Some humans whispered, "He did it. He made them wait. The dragons are respecting him." Others recorded everything, knowing that this event would be remembered for generations. Lysera looked up at Oren, her small eyes shining. "Thank you," she whispered, not for the food, but for everything he had done. For kneeling beside her when no dragon would. For showing her that she was worth respect and dignity. Oren smiled gently. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "You have the power to stand for yourself now. I am just here to help you see it." And so, in the heart of Vyrek Station, a small dragon girl and a human engineer had rewritten what it meant to be strong. Dragons who had ruled for centuries were forced to respect choice and courage. Humans, long considered weak and insignificant, had shown the galaxy a new kind of strength, one measured by honor, kindness, and quiet bravery. Lysera finished her meal, her small wings stretching fully. Oren stayed kneeling beside her, ready to help her heal and grow. Outside, the dragons waited, watching carefully. Inside, the market had fallen into a respectful silence, witnessing a moment that would change the way dragons and humans saw each other forever. For the first time, Lysera felt hope that she could choose her own life, and that courage and kindness, even from a human, could change the rules of an entire galaxy. News of the event spread quickly across the galaxy. Data streams from Vyrek Station went viral, shared on trading channels, news networks, and even dragon communication networks. A small dragon girl kneeling beside a human engineer had changed the way many beings thought about humans. For centuries, dragons had considered humans weak and insignificant, barely worthy of notice. Now, the galaxy paused to rethink everything. Stories circulated about the courage and patience of Oren Hale, the human who had not mocked, fought, or demanded power. Instead, he had simply knelt beside a dragon, sharing a meal, offering kindness, and protecting her from cruelty. Beings from many planets watched the footage, amazed that a human, small and physically weaker than dragons, could command respect simply through calm courage. In dragon circles, debates raged. How could a human hold the attention of Lysera? Some asked. It defies everything we know about strength. Others nodded slowly, realizing that the event had changed ancient assumptions. Strength was no longer measured solely by fire, wingspan, or claws. Patience, humility, and courage mattered too. Lysera herself grew stronger each day. With Oren's help, she recovered fully from hunger and weakness. She learned to control her small fire better, to stretch her wings, and to trust herself. But more than that, she learned the value of respect and choice, lessons humans had quietly taught her. She began speaking to other young dragons, sharing her experience, and encouraging them to think for themselves. The lessons spread quietly at first, whispered in dragon halls, until they could no longer be ignored. The old dragon leaders noticed the changes and grew worried. For centuries, they had maintained control through strict rules and intimidation. Yet here was Lysera, a small dragon who had been abandoned, now influencing dragons across worlds simply by standing beside a human and refusing to obey blindly. Her courage inspired others to question old traditions, and slowly, reform began. Lysera became a leader among dragons, respected not only for her royal bloodline but for her vision and fairness. She worked to ensure that no dragon would be abandoned for weakness again. Aid stations were reopened to all young dragons, regardless of size or ability. Dragons learned to judge one another by heart and spirit, not just by firepower or strength. Lysera often told the story of Oren Hale, the human who had knelt beside her in the market, teaching her that kindness and patience could be stronger than claws or flames. Oren returned to his quiet work as an engineer. He fixed machines, repaired ships, and maintained life support systems across the station. He did not seek recognition or titles. He did not ask for reward. For him, the act of helping Lysera had been enough. Yet his calm courage had left a lasting impression, not only on Lysera but on the galaxy. Even dragons who never met him spoke of the human who had changed a royal dragon's life without fire, threat, or power. Among dragons, a new saying began to spread, whispered in council halls and markets: when strength fails, look to humans. They understand hunger, humility, and kindness. It became a reminder that true courage often comes not from domination, but from empathy and care. Young dragons repeated the words to each other, and humans across the galaxy heard tales of respect and admiration, never before known. Lysera herself often reflected on the day in the market. She remembered the fear, the hunger, the mocking laughter, and then the small, quiet act that changed everything. Kneeling beside a human, sharing a simple meal, had shown her that courage was not about being the biggest or strongest. It was about standing for what was right, even when others laughed, and protecting those who could not protect themselves. Oren continued his work, mostly unnoticed, but he occasionally received messages from Lysera, updates on the dragons he had helped inspire. "They are learning," she wrote once. "Your actions made them think differently. The young dragons now ask why humans are kind when dragons were cruel. You changed more than one life." Oren smiled quietly at the message and returned to his work. He did not need praise. Seeing the results, seeing Lysera thrive, was enough. The galaxy, too, began to change. Beings from different planets began reconsidering the strength of humans. Stories were shared in schools, on ships, and in marketplaces. A human had kneeled beside a small dragon, shared food, and taught respect without raising a weapon. It became a symbol, simple yet profound, that small acts of kindness could ripple across worlds. Dragons in particular remembered it. They told young hatchlings that sometimes the bravest act was not a roar, not a fire blast, not a display of wings. Sometimes, the bravest act was to kneel, to offer what little you have, to treat another being with dignity. And in telling this story, they honored both the small dragon who had grown to lead and the human who had taught her the lesson. Lysera eventually took her place among the dragons as a wise and fair leader. She rebuilt trust among clans and encouraged cooperation with humans. Markets, stations, and planets began to see humans and dragons working together, side by side. And Oren, the quiet human engineer, continued his life with no fanfare, but with the satisfaction of knowing that one simple act, sharing a meal, had changed the galaxy forever. When travelers told the story, they said, the smallest dragon, abandoned and weak, and the quiet human who knelt beside her, had rewritten the rules of strength. Across the stars, beings remembered it not for battles or fire, but for courage, patience, and the simple act of sharing a meal on the ground. And so, the galaxy learned a lesson that would echo for generations, that sometimes, true bravery is not in defeating enemies, but in protecting the helpless, showing kindness, and standing for what is right, even when the world mocks you. The story of Lysera and Oren became a legend, simple yet powerful, and a reminder that even the smallest act of care can create ripples strong enough to change the universe.